Hey guys, happy Wednesday. Today is the 15th. Okay. If you want to go ahead and put today's topics into your binder checklist, today we're going to be talking about topics 3 and 4, which is just triangle mid-segment. You're also going to have a worksheet today. So let's talk about triangle mid-segment. So as best as you can, construct a triangle mid-segment. So if you're not sure what it is, this is actually the definition out of Math Nation. The mid-segment of a triangle joins the midpoints of two sides of a triangle. So let's actually start that. So let's try to find the midpoint of side AB. So as best as we can, we'll just estimate it. I'll put M for middle. And then also let's try to find the midpoint as best as we can for side BC. So I'll call it S and connect it. Okay. So it joins the midpoints of two sides of a triangle, and its length is half the length of the third side. So I'm just going to make up some numbers. Let's say my third side that I did not touch was, 12 centimeters long. Well, that means my mid-segment is going to be half that length. So it'll only be 6 centimeters long. And it's going to be parallel to the third side of the triangle. So anytime you have a mid-segment, it is parallel to that third side. So I'm just going to jot down here that MS is parallel with AC. Now, one thing I also forgot to draw is if these are both midpoints, that means my sides are being split in half, which means the length from A to M is the same as the length from M to B. And the length from, let's say, C to S is the same as the length from S to B. So usually you see tick marks anytime you have a mid-segment. So if you actually look at some of the pictures on the notes today, you'll see those tick marks. Okay, so that's what a mid-segment is. And now we're going to do some examples on it. So example 1, use the figure on the right to answer the following questions. Part A. Is segment MP a mid-segment? Explain how you know. Well, let's take a look at what we have here. Okay, if I look, M is definitely in the middle of this side here, DE, and the reason I know that is because I have a set of tick marks. And then I see here that P is also in the middle of side EF because, again, I have 2 tick marks. So yes, that's actually enough information for us to say MP is a mid-segment. Yes, because, and let's talk about how M and P are midpoints. Because M and P are midpoints for 2 sides. Part B says, what is the relationship between segment MP and segment DF? So if I look here, segment MP, okay, is my mid-segment, and segment DF is that third side. So what did we say earlier? We said that the mid-segment is going to be parallel to the third side. So these are actually parallel. If you want, you can draw those little wings. So I'm just going to write down that segment MP is parallel to segment DF. All right, so now you're going to be given some numbers. If the length of side MP is 21.4 centimeters, what is the length of DF? So I'm going to look at MP here. I'm going to label it 21.4 centimeters. And what did we say earlier about the length of the third side? Well, the mid-segment is half of the length of the third side. So basically, I'm just going to multiply this by 2. So I will end up getting 42.8 centimeters. So that is the length of DF. Okay. All right, let's do another mid-segment problem. This time it's a little bit different because if you actually look at this picture here, now I've got some X's involved. So we are given that segment MP is a mid-segment of triangle XYZ. We're going to answer the following questions. So part A is, what is the length of AB? So I want to know the actual length from A to B. Well, if I look down here at that third side, it's 34. So if I'm trying to find the midsegment, what am I going to do? Well, earlier, if I had the midsegment, I multiplied it by 2. So here, if I have that third side, I'm going to divide it by 2. So this is actually 17 units. Now, I want to use that for part B. I want to solve for x. Well, if I look at segment AB, I know it's 17 units, but I also know it's 3x minus 1 units. So what am I going to do with those two pieces of information? I'm just going to set them equal to each other. 3x minus 1 equals 17. And now you just simply solve for x. We can add the 1 over. 3x equals 18. Divide by 3. You get 6. X equals 6. Okay, so let's go ahead and flip to the back. We're going to do another example like this. So example 3, a midsegment is given, and you can actually see those tick marks here. Again, we're going to solve for x. This time, I don't give you any lengths. Both the midsegment and the third side have x's in it. So there's actually 2 ways you can solve this using what we know about midsegment and the third side. One of them is, if I know the midsegment, we can multiply it by 2 to get the third side. So I'm going to write that down for my option number 1. Multiply midsegment by 2 to equal the third side. Now, there's another way I could solve this. I'll do this in red. What if I wanted to work backwards? I could take my third side, I could divide it by 2 to get that midsegment. So it really just depends on what you want to do. So I'll write that down as my second option. Divide the third side by 2 to equal the midsegment. Now, looking at both of these scenarios, I think most people would like to multiply by 2. Personally, that's the one I prefer, but you can also divide by 2. So let's start. We're going to take x plus 4. We're going to multiply all of it by 2. So when I write that down, I'm going to put the x plus 4 in parentheses. Now, it's going to equal the third side. So it equals 4x minus 2. Now we solve. So how do we solve? Well, you'd want to distribute. So we'll end up getting 2x plus 8 equals 4x minus 2. We can then subtract the 2x over to get 8 equals 2x minus 2. We can add the 2 over to get 10. We divide, and we get 5. Now, if you want to check your answer, once you have x equals 5, you can actually plug it back in just to see what you get for your lengths, and then compare the third side to that midsegment and see if it is 2 times bigger. Okay, so same idea for example 4. A midsegment is given. We're going to solve for x. So again, I can take my midsegment, I can multiply it by 2 to get my third side, or you can take your third side, divide it by 2 to get your midsegment. I'm going to go with the multiplying by 2. So again, you're going to have 2 times the midsegment, which is 2x minus 14. This will equal a third side, x plus 2. You'll notice the steps are the same as before. You distribute the 2. 4x minus 28 equals x plus 2. You would probably subtract the x to get 3x minus 28 equals 2. You would then add the 28 over to get 30. You divide, you get x equals 10. And again, you could plug this back into both mid-segment and the third side to make sure that the third side is 2 times bigger than your mid-segment. Okay, this last example is a little bit different because I'm actually going to give you several mid-segments in one picture. So there are 3 mid-segments in this figure. We're given that segment DA is parallel to AB. So I'm just going to look for that. So DA is parallel with AB. You're also given that segment DF is parallel with CB. So DF is parallel with CB. And the segment that is 4 units long is parallel to DF. So this little guy is parallel to DF. Now the reason why you're given all 3 of these statements here is because it's telling you those are the mid-segments. So we're actually going to draw some tick marks on what should be congruent in the figure. So basically it looks like this figure up here in example 3. So let's start with the fact that DE is parallel with AB. So when I look at DE, that's my mid-segment, AB is that third side. So that means D is a midpoint and E is a midpoint. So I can put tick marks on either side of point D, and I'm also going to put double tick marks on either side of point E. Now you're also given that DF is parallel with CB. So when I look at DF, and then when I look at CB, you can kind of turn your paper here. This is a mid-segment. This is the third side. So that means point F is a midpoint for this side, and point D is a midpoint for this side, which we already did. So we could actually draw 3 tick marks on this side here. So those lengths are going to be the same. Okay, and the last thing was that 4 units long is parallel to DF. So now when I look at this guy, it's parallel to this one. So inside the small triangle here, the 4 units is the mid-segment and this is the third side, which means these are midpoints and these sides are being split in half. So I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know it's a lot of tick marks, but those are everything that should be congruent to each other. So now you'll notice that there's some numbers that are given to you. We're going to find each of these lengths. So let's start with AD. Well, when I look at AD, it's congruent to DC. So if this is 8, this is also 8. So I'll just mark down that this is 8 units. Now we're looking at FB. So when you look at FB, okay, it's got 3 tick marks, so does the 10. The 10 has 3 tick marks. So FB is the same as AF, which is 10. And then we're looking at CE. So if you notice, CE has double tick marks, so does EB. So they're both 9. And last but not least, DF. Well, if I look here, DF doesn't have anything on it, but if I focus on my small triangle here, trace over it, okay, you'll notice that DF is a third side to 4. 4 is the mid-segment. So remember, the mid-segment is half of the third side. So if this is 4, then DF is 8. Okay, that's it for the notes. If you are in my block class, you'll notice that there is an extra sheet stapled to your notes. I want you guys to start making a reference sheet because we have a quiz on Friday. So I want you to start writing down everything you've been learning this week about similar figures. Scale factor, the criterion, and now mid-segment. So start making your reference sheet. Talk with people in your class to get ideas of what you can write down. And then this is what you can use to study off of. Tomorrow, you guys, everybody is going to get a review worksheet that's going to cover topics 1 through 4. So it's going to cover everything. And then Friday will be your quiz. All right, great job today, guys. Have a good Thanksgiving break because I will not talk to you anymore this week, okay? See you all later. Bye-bye.